Hello everyone, today is 8th of March, now it's 12 o'clock, middle of the day by Moscow time. I'm Levan Gudadze and this is my first update for a day in which I will share all the main news that are making headlines in Russian media outlets and Russian language pages on different internet platforms. There are quite a few very significant developments and news that I'd like to share with you for this moment, and because there were no reports about crucial changes on a line of contact in the zone of special military operation, I will start with the media reporting straight away. And first of all, RT's report that US embassy warns of imminent attacks in Moscow. So US embassy in Moscow has warned that extremists are plotting attacks in the Russian capital that could happen within the next few days. The embassy is monitoring reports that extremists have imminent plans to target large gatherings in Moscow, to include concerts, and US citizens should be advised to avoid large gatherings over the next 48 hours. The diplomatic mission said in a statement on its website in the early hours of Friday local time. So this is this warning is from today, and I believe UK's diplomatic mission in Russia also made such a warning for UK's citizens to avoid large gatherings and so on. And one may wonder what CIA and US CIA and the British MI6 secret services are up to, because you might find it difficult to name even a single extremist terrorist organization that ever attacked Russia that had no connection with the US or UK secret services. So if Washington and London are warning their citizens about some imminent attacks in Moscow, most likely it's CIA and MI6 that are planning something. And hopefully Russian counterintelligence service and Russian anti-terrorist, counter-terrorist services will do the best they can to make sure that residents of Moscow and guests of the Russian capital are safe and secure. Next news is from Tass news agency, and many other media outlets, of course, report about it, that Zaluzhny will become ambassador of Ukraine into United Kingdom. President of Ukraine, Zelensky, appointed Zaluzhny as ambassador. Interesting news in one hand, and same time quite expected one, because many of you, of course, remember that even before Zaluzhny left general staff of Ukraine, rumors were circulating in internet, and I report, for example, about it quite a number of times, many other channels in this segment of news and political commentary, that Zaluzhny, who has close ties with the British militaries and British intelligence services, most likely will be sent to United Kingdom as an ambassador. London will demand this from Zelensky, because protection of Zaluzhny was a job of, for a while, by the way, he was protected by British secret services in Ukraine. And of course, after conflict between Zaluzhny's camp and Zelensky's camp become open, and some people even die as a result of this confrontation, of course, it's become obvious that for British secret services, it will be much easier to protect him in London, in UK. And well, it's official now. Zelensky was forced to appoint Zaluzhny as ambassador, and I guess he will stay in United Kingdom at least before possible presidential elections in Ukraine, in which he most likely will participate and will win. Recent poll numbers from Ukraine shows that Zaluzhny has much bigger support than Zelensky. And well, most likely through elections or through some other means, but Washington and London will replace Zelensky this year, by the way, maybe even in next 3 to 5 months time. Washington and London will replace Zelensky with Zaluzhny. Let's continue with some other news. Tass news agencies report that Zelensky signed a decree about demobilization of Ukrainian military personnel. that were participating in hostilities against Russia. Demobilization of conscripts, first of all, and this information is making waves for several days now, because it was known earlier than Zelensky was about to sign this decree. And many military experts, many commentators are, while commenting this topic, are saying that most likely vast majority of names that will be in a list of demobilized soldiers, vast majority of them most likely are killed in action or are missing, and only small number will be people that are alive, and those people will be shown on TV and will be used for propaganda purposes by Kiev regime. But by this move, demobilizing dead people, basically, Zelensky and his criminal associates will try to downgrade the number of real casualties, to hide the number of real casualties on the battlefield. It is possible. Zelensky is capable of anything, and he proved this many times, and same goes for his associates. So most likely that's exactly what will happen, and Zelensky will demobilize with this decree dead people, mostly dead people killed in action. And by the way, many of you probably already know also that New York Times, I believe, come up with the article, if New York Times or Washington Post, one of the big names in the Western media, come up with the article that some 700,000 mobilized personnel is missing in Ukraine. 700,000. So one may assume that a vast majority of those people, like 500,000 maybe, are killed in action. Significant number also are POWs in Russian custody, and another few dozen of thousand people are most likely hiding somewhere in Ukraine, or maybe even left Ukraine by fleeing front line. But number, by the way, 700,000 mobilized people are missing. Wow. And now Zelensky will demobilize those missing people. That's what's gonna happen. Anyway, let's continue. Tass News Agency's report that according to article in New York Times, Washington is once again critical of military strategy of Kiev regime, and the main critique from White House and Pentagon comes towards this constant attempts of Kiev regime to conduct simultaneous offensive operations in several directions, while Washington is insisting that Kiev regime should concentrate its offensive capabilities towards single point direction. This topic was issued during the so-called spring-summer offensive of Kiev regime, and initially Kiev regime was focused, one may say, on two directions, not single but two directions. One was Zaporozhye sector of the front line, another is South Donetsk sector of the front. But then Kiev regime can come up with their additional direction of this local scale offensive, which was Bakhmut direction, and later on Kherson direction. And well, it is quite understandable that Washington is not happy with this strategy of Kiev regime, because it's failure after failure after failure. But same time, by the way, I believe by ordering this kind of articles, and I believe New York Times and all the other big names, so-called big names in the Western media, are assets of the Western ruling class. By ordering this type of articles, elites in the US, in this particular case, are trying to, in one hand, distance themselves from the failures of Kiev regime, obviously, and in other hand, they are trying to save their faces, not just because they are kind of shame of previous or responsible, directly or indirectly, for previous failures of Kiev regime, but also for inevitable future failures of Kiev regime. And of course, they are concerned in Washington that, well, their reputation will be smashed once Ukraine will undergo full-scale disintegration, which is inevitable. And, you know, by pushing this narrative that, you know, Kiev regime did not listen, and that's why with Ukraine happened what happened, they are just trying to save face. That's all, really. Anyway, let's continue. And that type of articles probably will be published more and more as time goes by. Next report is from RT. Well, Sweden officially joins NATO. On 7th of March, Sweden became a 32nd member of US-led anti-Russian military coalition. Okay, no surprises here. We all know that this was inevitable. And it is official now. Russian response is creation of 2 additional military districts, Leningrad military districts and Moscow military districts. And that's it, really. Sweden and Finland were active participants of this anti-Russian coalition. And for Russia, nothing really has changed by these 2 countries now become official members of anti-Russian coalition. I believe this is a mistake for both Finland and Sweden to join anti-Russian military coalition, but it's their decision, and if they want it this way, then okay. RIA Novosti's report that leaders of French opposition parties did not support President of France Macron while meeting with him yesterday, and they were quite critical of Macron's extreme stance when it comes to Ukrainian crisis, especially topic of deployment of French troops into Ukraine to combat Russia. And well, this is quite promising news, really, because at least some people in the political leadership of France are sane people, it seems like, and they don't want France to become involved in open war with Russia, which is quite a sensible, understandable position. We don't want war with France. If you ask me, I don't want war with anybody. And the same answer you will receive from vast majority of citizens in Russia. Of course, we don't want any war, man. And it's only understandable that people in France also don't want any war, man. Why should we fight? I mean, because Macron is crazy and wants to provoke this war? No. So yes, it is promising that at least in some political parties in France, leadership is against further increase of hostilities between the countries, and relationships already are on the lowest level between Russia and France since, I don't know, man, since ever, maybe, for quite a while, for sure. Tass News Agency's report about yet another article in Politico, quite a confusing article, really, which is supposing that Scholz wants to press Kiev regime towards beginning negotiations with peace talks with Moscow, and that's why Scholz is against, Chancellor of Germany, of course, is against deliveries of Taurus long-range cruise missiles to Zelensky and his associates. And, well, some people may get confused by this information because, well, Germany is the second country after US when it comes to financial and military support of Kiev regime. And, well, this objective reality definitely don't says that Germany is for peace talks or Germany is pressing Kiev to start peace negotiations. Definitely not. That's one point. And the other is that, according to some well-informed experts, by the way, Germany already delivered Taurus missiles to Kiev regime. And we are now observing just political play that is going down in Germany with different statements. I mean, we will deliver, we will not, and that kind of stuff. According to some well-informed experts, by the way, Taurus missiles already are in Ukraine. And those high-ranking German officers that were discussing targeting Crimean Bridge, for example, in that leak audio that we all see recently, those German officers were most likely involved in deliveries of those Taurus missiles. And Scholz also is informed about it. It's highly unlikely that Scholz has no idea that German militaries delivered Taurus missiles into Ukraine. So I don't know what is going on with Politico, but I guess they have to check their sources, because in no way Scholz can be Chancellor of Germany, can be seen as some kind of peacemaker, because after all, as I said, Germany is second after US when it comes to financial and military support of Kiev regime. I would believe if some media outlet come up with an article that Hungary's Orban, by the way, Hungary's Prime Minister Orban is pressing hard Kiev regime to start peace talks with Moscow, because Hungary's government demonstrated time after time that they don't want anything to do with this proxy war against Russia that are waged by collective West or ruling class of the West. But Scholz, German Chancellor, no way, man. So Politico is definitely mistaken there. Anyway, Tass news agencies report that Western media outlets are continuing to push this narrative that 2 days ago, while Zelensky and Greek Prime Minister were in Odessa, Russian side targeted their motorcycle or cortege, which is false information, of course. No one in this world probably will believe that Russian side wanted to target Zelensky and missile went some 500 meters away. It's nonsense, by the way. But still, Western media outlet and Kiev regime is trying to push this narrative, but yet again, not really many people believes in this crap. Former president of Russian Federation and current deputy chairman of Security Council, Dmitry Medvedev, reacted on these rumors or this propaganda of the West and the Kiev regime, and he said that, you know, everybody understands well that there was no strike against a motorcycle or cortege of Zelensky, because there was no such order. But if Russian side would decide to target Zelensky, then Russian side would not miss, and missile will find its target, its destination. And he's correct, by the way. I mean, he's correct. I find it difficult to understand how this some big names, by the way, in the West, when it comes to media, propaganda, okay, propaganda outlets, but still, they have to at least try to maintain some level of, I don't know, professionalism. How these media outlets are coming up with this such a false narratives and false news, man, fake news, I don't know, man. And how people are still listening and reading those outlets, man, that's even more difficult to comprehend, man. I mean, they are really fake news, man. Take any Western media outlet, it's a total fake news, man. You may read like 10% true in those medias, and the rest of it, 90%, is some kind of fake propaganda stuff. But anyway, let's continue. RT is reporting that, well, US will not bow down to Russia, according to Biden. Okay, US will not stop supporting Ukraine in its conflict with Russia, President Joe Biden said in his State of Union address on Thursday night. Russian President Vladimir Putin is hell-bent on sowing chaos around Europe, Biden claimed. If anybody in this room thinks Putin will stop in Ukraine, I assure you he will not, Biden told the Congress. He went on the renew his appeal to House Republicans to stop blocking additional military aid to Kiev, and I mean, it's not really interesting, by the way. Just one more high-ranking official in the West who is talking about this inevitable war between Russia and NATO and how Russia not gonna stop in Ukraine and then gonna start war with the NATO member states and the rest of the BS, man. It's not even funny at this point, it's just sad. It's just sad that these high-ranking officials in the West, day after day, coming up with these extremely dangerous statements about possibility of confrontation between Russia and NATO, and scaring their own public with this, and this is happening without any challenge. Nobody in the West, among the so-called media, by the way, are challenging them to provide any evidences. I mean, you can claim whatever you want, but if you have no evidence to back your claims up, then shut the, But it is what it is, man. Unfortunately, all the best journalists that they are in the West, they're all working in the independent media projects, in internet, and even big names, by the way, even biggest names in this field of news and political commentary are not really able to successfully challenge the Western propaganda outlets, because scales are very different. Scales just are too different. Anyway, let's continue. And that's why, by the way, a vast majority of public in the West believes in all that crap that they are seeing from TV and new so-called newspapers and magazines. They just have no idea what is going on in reality. They just don't know. But they are quite sure in exactly the opposite. Because, they are watching CNN, they are watching BBC, or they are reading New York Times, Unbelievable. RT's report that Biden considers sending US armies money to Ukraine, according to Bloomberg, by the way. Also a Western propaganda outlet. Okay, because the House Republicans are blocking this Biden's aid package of 60-something billion to Kiev regime. Now Washington, White House, and Pentagon are considering to send Pentagon's own money from Pentagon's budget to Kiev regime. Okay, US basically is beginning officially to demilitarize itself. Many European states did the same, and well, now US is basically starting to spend Pentagon's money for Kiev regime. Okay, I mean, what you gonna do about it? It's crazy, but it is what it is. TASS news agencies report that ambassador of US in Russia was summoned by Russian Foreign Ministry, and Russian officials demanded this Lena Tracy, that's name of US ambassador in Russia, and the Russian side is demanding from US embassy staff to stop working with their organizations here in Russia that are designated as foreign agents. Russian Foreign Ministry is demanding from US diplomatic mission to stay in a framework of diplomatic work and not to become part of political process in Russia. Otherwise, Moscow is quite direct that US diplomats will be expelled from Russia. If US embassy staff will not change its behavior, members of embassy will be expelled from Russia, which is, of course, will be one more move towards further the downgrade of level of diplomatic relationships between the countries. And at some point, I guess, both sides will recall ambassadors, because we are definitely heading towards that direction. RT's report that Nigeria will apply to become a member of Brics, which is, well, quite interesting and important news, by the way, because Nigeria is one of the major countries, of course, in African continent, undoubtedly. And, well, Nigeria plans to apply for membership in the Brics groups of emerging countries after the necessary domestic arrangements are complete. Foreign Minister Yusuf Tuggar has said the diplomat is in Moscow this week on a 3-day working visit from March 5th to March 7th. On Wednesday, Tuggar met with the Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov to discuss bilateral relations as well as the country's regional and global agenda. Talking to the news agency Sputnik on a range of issues, including potential BRIC memberships, he said, "We intend to do it like I said before, Nigeria runs a deliberative democratic system, so there tends to be a lot of engagement with different interest groups, different internal bodies before such an action is taken." Well, whatever the case, by the way, of course, Nigeria is a major country in Africa, undoubtedly, and of course, BRICS will benefit if Nigeria will join this organization, and Nigeria will hugely benefit from it, undoubtedly. Question is, will West allow this to happen? Because we all know Nigeria is an oil-rich country. Western energy companies are working for decades and decades in Nigeria. They have huge influence, and through energy companies, usually Western secret services are entering the countries and establishing their networks, including in the political system. And therefore, I believe process of Nigeria moving towards BRICS will take time, undoubtedly, but eventually, if they will manage to get rid of Western influence, if they will overcome Western opposition and join BRICS, of course, it will be beneficial for Nigeria, for region, entire region, and for BRICS, undoubtedly. This is good news. But it will take time, undoubtedly. RIA Novosti's report that Poland is recommending Brussels to dismiss all the preferences that Ukraine has when it comes to export of agricultural produce, not just in Poland, but into EU market entirely. This was stated by Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk, and of course this is an attempt from Polish government to calm down farmers in Poland somehow, and farmers probably know it. This is just a political game because Brussels not gonna do nothing. They had many opportunities to do it, to take any steps to protect local market, local businesses, local farmers, but they did nothing. And therefore, this call from Donald Tusk, of course, will have no impact, and therefore, I believe protests of Polish farmers will continue, maybe even escalate, because after all, they are fighting for their own businesses and livelihoods. By the way, they have nowhere to retreat. Farmers are not in position to retreat or go for compromises, because in that case they will lose business. It's clear. Many of them will lose business. Anyway, let's continue, and this is going to be last news for today's, I hope, short update. RIA Novosti's report that from 1st of April, social pensions in Russia will rise 7.5%. Okay, this is the first rise this year, if I'm not mistaken. Well, 7.5% in last, if we take inflation in the last 3 months, definitely is above average inflation. And I guess towards the end of the year, probably there will be another increase. So yes, good news, especially of course for pensioners that are receiving social pensions. So yes, some additional support from government to the pensioners. And well, this is it for now. Quite short update, by the way. Quite a short update, which is good, and hopefully you will find this video interesting, informative, useful, and if so, please consider to click that like button and leave some commentary just about anything, any topic. More likes and comments probably will help me to deal with the algorithm and reach wider audience on both platforms, on YouTube and Rumble. And for very same reason, if you can, please share links to my videos or my channels with your friends on any of the platforms that you are using actively. And finally, if you think this channel is interesting, useful, informative, maybe entertaining time to time, and deserves to exist in this field of news and political commentary, please consider to support my work with small donations through PayPal, buy me a coffee, or by subscribing to my Patreon page. You can see all the links in the description box or in the pinned comment. This is it for now. Have a great day and take care.